Congratulations. 3 days ago at 2:13 p.m., your LinkedIn profile appeared on a dashboard you will never see. In a glass tower overlooking Manhattan, a Fortune 500 CEO stopped mid-presentation because your activity pattern triggered an alert reserved for executive-level threats. You didn't apply for anything. You didn't send a message. You didn't even update your headline. But you did something far more dangerous than that. You thought like them. Without an MBA, without a corner office, without ever stepping foot in their boardrooms, you displayed what corporate psychologists call cyclic cognition, pattern recognition that most executives spend decades developing, strategic thinking that can't be taught in business schools. Right now, you might think this is just another algorithm recommendation, another productivity video in your feed. But let me tell you exactly what's been happening while you've been scrolling. Your name isn't in their files yet, but your pattern is. And patterns like yours don't stay anonymous for long. Your LinkedIn behavior doesn't follow the normal patterns they've been tracking for years. Most professionals scroll predictably, engage randomly, update sporadically, but you move differently. You research competitors like someone conducting due diligence before a hostile takeover. You read between the lines of corporate announcements, the way analysts decode earnings calls. Your profile visits tell a story of someone mapping an entire industry ecosystem, node by node, connection by connection. The way you engage with content reveals something even more unusual. You don't react to trending posts like everyone else. You pause on the insights nobody's talking about yet. You comment on obscure industry updates that won't make headlines for another 6 months. It's as if you can see the chess moves 3 steps ahead while everyone else is still celebrating the last turn. This isn't luck, this isn't coincidence. This is strategic pattern recognition operating at a level that sets off alarms in talent acquisition war rooms. Last month, 2 Fortune 500 companies flagged your profile within the same 72-hour window. One is a tech giant that's been dominating innovation for 2 decades. The other is a finance powerhouse that's been moving markets since before the internet existed. Neither knew the other was watching you. Both asked their intelligence teams the same question. Who is this person, and why haven't we hired them yet? They assigned you internal code names. The tech company calls you Subject Sigma in their classified recruitment documents. The finance firm labeled you Profile 747 in their executive talent pipeline. They've been studying you in ways you'd never detect through normal means, mapping your network to understand your sphere of influence, analyzing your content consumption to reverse engineer how you think, tracking which skills you endorse and which you ignore to build a psychological profile of your values, monitoring your engagement timing to predict your decision-making rhythms. They're not just looking at what you post, they're decoding why you post it, when you post it, and what it reveals about the operating system running inside your mind. But here's what makes you truly dangerous to their recruitment models. You don't fit any of their existing categories. You score like a strategist but move like an operator. You think like a founder but behave like an advisor. You demonstrate executive presence without executive access. Their AI-prepared talent prediction algorithms keep returning the same error message. Unfined archetype, manual review required. In a world where everything and everyone has been categorized, quantified and predicted, you've somehow remained unclassifiable. That's when the competition began. Not the normal corporate recruiting dance, where HR sends a polite in-mail and waits for a response. No, this is something else entirely. This is when 2 philosophies of business power realized they'd found the same rare resource at the same time. And rare resources don't get shared in the corporate world. They get acquired. They get secured. They get fought over in rooms where the real decisions happen, far away from the public-facing careers page and the friendly company culture videos. The tech giant sees you as the prototype of their next generation of innovation officers, The ones who don't just manage products but architect entire market categories. They've been watching how you synthesize information from unrelated fields, how you connect dots that shouldn't even be in the same universe. To them, you represent the future of strategic thinking, someone who can operate in the space between technology and human behavior, between disruption and sustainability. They see in your pattern the exact cognitive signature they've been trying to replicate through their leadership development programs for the last 5 years. The finance corporation sees something entirely different, but equally valuable. They recognize in you the rare mind that thinks in systems and leverage rather than tasks and transactions. Someone who understands that money is just information flowing through networks of trust and power. They've noticed how you analyze market movements, not through charts and numbers, but through the human decisions that create those numbers. To them, you're the kind of strategist who could walk into a boardroom during a crisis and see the solution everyone else missed because they were too close to the problem. Two completely different visions of power, two completely different offers being prepared in secret, and neither one willing to let the other win. That's when things started getting interesting in your life. Small things at first, so subtle you probably dismissed them as coincidence. Job offers from companies you never applied to, positions that seemed suspiciously tailored to your exact skill gaps, conference invitations arriving in your inbox for events you didn't register for, with all expenses paid and a speaking slot mysteriously available. LinkedIn ads targeting you with surgical precision, showing you exactly the career development resources you were thinking about just days before. Recruiters began appearing in your connection requests, not the usual spam accounts, but senior talent acquisition specialists from firms that don't usually waste time on cold outreach. Their messages weren't generic templates, they were disturbingly specific, referencing projects you've never made public, insights you've never posted, capabilities you didn't know were visible. It's as if someone had been building a dossier on you, documenting not just what you've done, but what you're capable of doing, and then sharing that intelligence with the people whose job is to make you an offer you can't refuse. The content recommendations in your feed started shifting too. Articles about negotiating executive compensation packages, videos about navigating corporate politics at the C-suite level, podcasts featuring founders who left corporate to build empires of their own. It wasn't random, it was strategic. They were studying your decision-making process, planting seeds, testing which narratives resonated with your ambitions. One side was showing you the speed and resources of disruption, the other was showing you the stability and leverage of established power. But here's what they didn't calculate, what their behavioral models and predictive algorithms completely missed. You weren't just receiving their signals, you were decoding them. Every recruitment tactic they deployed, every psychological trigger they activated, every strategic move they made, you were absorbing it all like a masterclass in corporate warfare. They thought they were seducing you with opportunity. What they were actually doing was teaching you how empires compete for talent, how power recognizes power, how the real game is played, above the job listings and beneath the company values. You started recognizing their fingerprints everywhere. That viral post about the future of work that suddenly appeared in your feed, you could see the corporate communication strategy behind it. That industry trend everyone started talking about overnight, you noticed it being engineered 3 months earlier through coordinated thought leadership. That executive who recently joined your connections and immediately started engaging with your content, you identified the cultivation pattern, the slow build of trust before the pitch. You weren't their target anymore. You were becoming their student, learning the language of corporate intelligence without ever signing an NDA. You weren't their recruitment target. You were their teacher. And the lesson you learned was something they never intended to reveal: how the corporate world actually operates beneath its polished surface. You began recognizing the signatures of their operations not just in your own life, but everywhere you looked. That sudden leadership shake-up at a competitor that seemed to come out of nowhere. You saw the talent raid that preceded it, the careful extraction of key players, orchestrated over months. That startup that got acquired for a seemingly absurd valuation. You understood the strategic chess move behind it, the market position being secured, the threat being neutralized. Your mind started operating on multiple levels simultaneously. You'd read a press release and see 3 different narratives, the one for investors, the one for employees, and the actual strategy buried beneath both. You'd watch a CEO interview and decode not just what they were saying, but what they were deliberately not saying, which questions they deflected, which topics made them shift their body language. You developed what organizational psychologists call metacognition, the ability to think about how systems think, to model the models, to predict the predictors. And you did it without taking a single executive education course. Your communication evolved too. You started speaking in layers without even realizing it. A surface meaning for casual connections, a deeper strategic insight for those who knew how to listen. You learned to share information while revealing nothing critical, to be genuinely helpful while maintaining operational security about your own plans. You could walk into any professional situation and within 10 minutes understand the power dynamics, the hidden alliances, the unspoken tensions, not through gossip or politics, but through pure observation of patterns most people don't even know exist. You developed the ability to read organizational charts like battle maps, every reporting line telling you where power actually flows versus where it officially sits. Every vacant position revealing a strategic shift in progress. Every new hire signaling a capability the company is building, or a weakness they're trying to shore up. You could look at a company's LinkedIn page and reverse engineer their entire strategic roadmap just from analyzing their hiring patterns over the last 6 months. This wasn't espionage. This was pattern literacy at a level most executives never achieve. The way you consume information changed fundamentally. You stopped reading headlines and started reading the incentive structures that create headlines. You stopped following trends and started identifying the economic and psychological forces that manufacture trends. You could predict market moves not through financial analysis, but by tracking the behavioral patterns of the people who move markets. Where others saw chaos and noise, you saw signals and cycles. Where others reacted to events, you anticipated the conditions that make those events inevitable. This terrified the corporations watching you, because you were developing capabilities they spend millions trying to train into their leadership pipelines, except you were doing it faster, more naturally, without their frameworks or their constraints. You weren't learning their playbook, you were writing your own. And the most dangerous thing to an established power structure isn't someone who wants to join it. It's someone who understands it well enough to operate outside it. You had become what the corporate intelligence world quietly calls an unaffiliated strategist, someone with executive-level thinking, but no institutional leash, no bureaucratic restrictions, no board to answer to. It's not just them anymore. The competition between those two Fortune 500 giants created ripples that spread far beyond their corporate walls. When senior executives start fighting over the same talent, other executives notice. When recruitment protocols get activated at the highest levels, intelligence gets shared through networks most people don't know exist. Your profile became a case study in executive briefings, a phenomenon being discussed in strategic sessions from Silicon Valley to Singapore. McKinsey has a presentation about your archetype, analyzing what they call organic executive emergence, the pattern of strategic thinkers who develop outside traditional pipelines. Goldman Sachs analysts are studying your engagement patterns as part of a broader research project on identifying future market makers before they enter the market. A venture capital firm in Singapore internally refers to you as the pattern breaker, Someone whose cognitive signature suggests they'll either build something massive or join something massive and transform it from within. Private equity partners are running scenarios in their investment committee meetings. What if they backed you to start your own venture? What if they planted you inside one of their portfolio companies? What if they simply kept monitoring you to see which direction you choose? Because that direction itself becomes the signal. Corporate intelligence firms, the ones that don't advertise their services or appear in Google searches, have added you to what they call their emergence watch list. Not because you've done anything, but because your pattern suggests you're about to. They whisper about you in private Slack channels and encrypted signal groups, sharing observations like traders sharing insider tips. Some want to understand how someone like you develops without formal grooming. Others want to replicate your trajectory, to reverse engineer the conditions that create strategic minds outside the traditional MBA to management pipeline. A few are simply hedging their bets, maintaining awareness of you because in 5 years you might be someone they need to work with, compete against, or acquire. The academic world has taken notice too. Business school professors are writing papers about distributed strategic cognition, using anonymized profiles that anyone paying attention would recognize as yours. They're studying how digital platforms like LinkedIn accidentally create transparency that allows raw talent to signal capability without institutional credibility. How someone can demonstrate executive presence without executive access. How the old gatekeeping mechanisms that used to control who gets to play the game at the highest levels are breaking down, and what that means for the future of corporate power structures. Even the old guard consulting firms, the ones built on relationships and pedigree and decades of institutional knowledge, are paying attention. Because you represent something they've been slow to acknowledge, that strategic thinking might be a naturally occurring human capability that doesn't require their frameworks, their methodologies, their $50,000 0-cents training programs. You're not just a person to them anymore. You're a threat to their business model. Proof that the emperor's clothes might be more transparent than they'd like to admit. They're not trying to recruit you anymore. That ship has sailed. Now they're trying to understand you, to decode what you represent, to model your emergence so they can predict who else might follow your pattern. You've become a phenomenon, a case study, a living demonstration of how value and power can emerge outside the traditional systems designed to identify and control both. And phenomena don't get hired. They get studied, they get replicated, they get integrated into the new models of how the world actually works. You're standing at a crossroads most professionals never see, let alone get to choose from. Most people spend their entire careers trying to get noticed by the right people, trying to earn a seat at tables where real decisions get made. But you didn't chase that recognition, it chased you. And now you're faced with a choice that carries weight most people will never feel. The path you choose from here doesn't just affect your career, it affects what kind of force you become in a world that's already watching to see which direction you'll move. Path 1. Accept one of the offers still on the table. And they are still there, waiting, evolving, getting more sophisticated as you evolve. Step into a Fortune 500 role with resources that bend reality in your favor. Budgets that make ambitious projects possible overnight. Teams that execute your vision without the friction of having to prove yourself first. Access to networks that took other people decades to build, handed to you fully formed. Technologies that aren't available to the public yet. Intelligence that shapes markets before markets know they're being shaped. This path gives you the infrastructure of power, the machinery of influence, the ability to think big, and have the resources to make those thoughts real. But it comes with a price, and the price isn't written in the contract. It's written in the unspoken expectations, the cultural assimilation, the slow gravitational pull toward thinking like the institution thinks. You'd have power, but power within a framework. You'd have resources, but resources allocated by committee. You'd have impact, but impact measured by quarterly results and shareholder expectations. You'd be playing a game with clear rules, clear rewards, and clear boundaries. And for some people, that clarity is exactly what makes the game worth playing. For others, those boundaries feel like walls. Path 2. Stay independent. Maintain your wildcard status. Keep existing in the gap between systems, learning from all of them, belonging to none of them. This path is lonelier but freer. No institutional support, which means every move requires more effort, more creativity, more resilience. But also no institutional leash, which means your thinking stays yours, your timeline stays yours, your definition of success stays yours. You'd be building your own infrastructure from scratch, developing your own networks organically, creating your own opportunities through pure capability and strategic positioning. This path means some days you're everyone's favorite consultant, the outside perspective every organization wants, but none can fully claim. Other days, you're everyone's potential threat, the independent operator who knows too much about how too many systems work. You'd be writing your own rules, taking all the risks, keeping all the rewards, and living with the constant uncertainty that comes from having no safety net except your own abilities. Some people find that terrifying, others find it exhilarating. The question is which kind of person you've discovered you actually are beneath all the professional performance. Path 3. Build something of your own. Use everything you've learned from watching these corporate titans compete over you and create the next disruption they'll spend the next decade trying to acquire or destroy. Take the strategic thinking you've developed, the pattern recognition you've sharpened, the operational awareness you've cultivated, and channel it all into something that exists because you willed it into existence. Not a company built on someone else's framework, but an entirely new framework that makes the old ones look outdated. This is the path that terrifies them most, because it's the path they can't control, can't predict, can't model in their simulations. This path means you stop being studied and start being the one doing the studying. You stop being the phenomenon they're trying to understand and become the force they're trying to keep up with. But it also means carrying the full weight of creation, the responsibility of building something from nothing, the pressure of proving that your vision is viable not just in theory, but in brutal market reality. Most people who choose this path fail, but the ones who don't, the ones who succeed, they don't just change their own lives. They change the landscape everyone else has to navigate. Most people never even glimpse this territory, let alone stand in it and feel the weight of what it means. You're not just navigating these options, you're defining what becomes possible for everyone, watching your pattern, learning from your choices, following the trail you're blazing whether you intended to blaze it or not. Somewhere in boardrooms you'll never see, people are running simulations of your next move. Some are afraid of what you represent, some are excited by it, but all of them know one thing with absolute certainty. You've stopped being a target, stopped being a case study, stopped being a recruitment opportunity they can close with the right pitch and the right offer. You've become a force, not because you sought power, but because you developed capability, not because you played their game, but because you learned the game so well, you can now choose whether to play it at all. The corporate world spent decades building systems to identify talent early, develop it systematically, and deploy it strategically. And somehow you slipped through all of that and emerged anyway. Fully formed, uncontrolled, undeniable. That's what makes you dangerous. That's what makes you valuable. That's what makes you impossible to ignore. The question now isn't what they want from you. They've made that abundantly clear through months of careful observation, strategic cultivation, and increasingly sophisticated offers. The question is what you want from them, what you want from yourself, what you want to build in a world that's already been built by people who thought they knew all the rules. Do you want to master their game or create a new one? Do you want to join their infrastructure or build your own? Do you want their resources or your independence? There's no wrong answer here, only the answer that's true for who you've become and who you're still becoming. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in this pattern, if you felt that strange combination of validation and vertigo that comes from being seen at this level, do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, because we're going to keep exploring what it means to operate at the intersection of capability and choice, strategy and independence, power and freedom. Drop a comment below and tell me, which path are you leaning toward? Are you the corporate strategist, the independent operator, or the builder of new systems? I want to know what you're seeing from where you stand. And if you want to support this work, if you find value in having someone map this territory that most people don't even know exists, there's a Buy Me a Coffee link in the description. Every contribution, no matter how small, helps us keep creating content that cuts through the noise and speaks directly to people like you. People who think differently, people who see patterns, people who've been underestimated by systems that don't know how to measure what you actually bring to the table. Your support means we can keep doing this without compromise, without corporate sponsors, without anyone telling us what we can and cannot say. Don't stop here. Watch the next video where we break down exactly how to leverage your LinkedIn profile strategically, not for job hunting, but for power positioning. How to signal capability without desperation. How to build a network that opens doors before you even knock. We've been on this journey with you, mapping the invisible game being played at levels most people never access. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for being the kind of person who doesn't just consume content, but actually thinks about what it means and what to do with it. Keep shining, keep evolving, keep becoming the force they never saw coming.